I know it's two. I know it's two.
No,
you gotta
listen
open.
to
You
me.
gotta open the safe.
Listen to me. Everybody call them glory days?
I killed Richie Wheelan, all right?
Sure you did.
The film begins with a narration about drop bars, ordinary-looking bars that mobsters secretly use to launder money. Cash flows in and out constantly, moved by bagmen to its final destination. Bar owners rarely know when their establishment is chosen as a drop bar, ensuring the operation stays secure. At one of these bars, we meet Bob Saginowski, a quiet bartender with a mysterious past and a hidden capacity for violence. The bar is managed by his cousin Marv, but it's owned by the Chechen MAFIA. A group of elderly patrons raise a toast to their late friend Richie Wheelan, who was mysteriously killed about 10 years ago. Bob offers them a free round, but Marv scolds him, insisting business isn't charity. He grows angrier when he finds out Bob allowed an elderly woman to drink for free and smoke indoors. Bob sees it as a small act of kindness, yet ultimately he respects Marv's warnings. We learn that Bob is a devout Catholic and regular churchgoer. One evening, he hears a dog whimpering in a neighbor's trash can. Investigating, he discovers a severely injured pit bull puppy, left to die. Nadia, the dog's owner, appears and questions who's meddling around. Bob explains the situation and pleads for her help. Skeptical, Nadia asks for his license and even shares a photo of it with friends to ensure he's trustworthy. Together, they tend to the puppy's wounds. Knots and bruises indicate past abuse, though nothing is life-threatening. During their conversation, Bob notices bruises on Nadia's neck. She reveals she works as a waitress and has experience in animal rescue. They agree the puppy shouldn't go to a shelter, and Bob convinces Nadia to care for him temporarily, until he can return in 2 days. Nearby, two brothers nervously discuss a plan to rob Marv's bar. The older brother is confident they need to prove themselves to their mob boss by handling such a risky job, but the younger, a drug addict, is terrified, knowing the bar is a Chechen mafia drop spot. Eventually, he is convinced by his sibling. Later, masked robbers hold the bar hostage just before closing time, aiming guns at the staff and ordering Marv to fill a bag with all the cash. Marv calmly warns them they're messing with the wrong people, but under threat, he complies. During the chaos, Bob notices one robber's broken watch. After the robbery, they discover Randy, a bar employee, brutally beaten to death in the backyard. Detective Torres arrives to investigate. He knows Bob from attending the same church for years, though they've never spoken. Bob doesn't have much to say, the robbers were fully masked, but he mentions that one wore a broken watch stopped at 6:15. The stolen cash amounts to roughly $5,000. Torres also notices Bob consistently skipping line communion at church, which Bob initially denies. When pressed again, he insists he isn't. In reality, Bob avoids communion to skip confessing about his past misdeeds. Marv grows furious upon learning Bob revealed the broken watch, fearing the Chechens will be enraged. Bob returns to retrieve the puppy and invites Nadia to accompany him to a pet store, as he's never owned a dog. Nadia picks up bowls, a leash, a poop bag, and a proper care guide. Bob wants to name the puppy Mike, but Nadia prefers Rocco. They create a Rocco name tag, though Bob still favors Mike. The next morning at church, Bob notices a statue of Saint Rocco with a dog, which amuses him. After shopping, Bob drops Nadia home, unaware that a thug named Eric Deeds is watching them. One morning, while shoveling snow, Marv and Bob are confronted by Chovka, the Chechen mafia boss who owns the bar. Chovka reveals he's captured one of the robbers responsible for the heist, brutally tortured, gagged, and pinned to the van floor by his foot. He questions Marv and Bob about knowing the man. They deny it. Chovka also asks how the police learned about the broken watch, prompting a desperate apology from Bob. Threateningly, Chovka instructs Marv to return the stolen money before speeding away. Marv feels uneasy. If Chovka already knows how to recover the money, it hints Marv may have been involved. Meanwhile, Detective Torres uncovers that 10 years ago, Marv lost his bar to a Chechen mafia led by Papa Umarov, Chovka's father. Speaking with a colleague from the Major Crime Administration, Torres asks if they plan to take down Umarov. She laughs it off, saying he's too powerful, and jokingly adds that Torres should feel free to stick with them. It's his call. Bob, meanwhile, enjoys spending time with Rocco, though he's still inexperienced with dog care, often cleaning up after the puppy. One morning at the dog park, Bob plays with Rocco and is approached by Nadia, who is exercising. Having lost her night shift, she offers to care for Rocco for extra cash. Already attracted to her, Bob accepts immediately, and they exchange numbers. After parting ways, Eric Deeds appears, complimenting Bob on his dog. Suspicious of Eric, Bob grabs Rocco and walks away. Marv lives with his sister, Dottie, while their father remains in a nursing home, barely alive and reliant on machines. The siblings discuss his condition. Dottie, frustrated by the constant expense and seeming futility, suggests unplugging their father and enjoying life, traveling Europe, seeing the world. Marv strongly disagrees, insisting that they owe their father lifelong care, refusing to sacrifice their duty for convenience. Marv confronts one of the robbers, Fitz, revealing that Fitz orchestrated the heist. He harshly scolds him, not only for his brother's mistake of wearing a broken watch, but also for beating Randy so badly that an ambulance had to be called, attracting police attention. Marv instructs Fitz that their next robbery must be cleaner, suggesting that the bar become a drop bar to facilitate the operation. Elsewhere, a thug-like stranger in a car asks Marv for the hospital address. Marv provides it, but senses something off, making him wary. At Bob's house, he talks to Rocco, apologizing for not taking him out. A knock at the door reveals Eric, who rudely enters without invitation. Eric demands to know where Bob put the puppy, claiming it's his, leaving Bob confused and refusing to comply. Eric insists that if Bob owns the dog, he must have a security chip and a license, legally required to prove ownership. He explains that a security chip is implanted in a dog to verify its owner. Eric shows Bob the chip serial, implying he owns Rocco. Bob insists the dog is his, citing Eric's history of abuse. Eric threatens to blame Bob in front of the police. When Bob asks what he wants, Eric cryptically warns,
"It's kind of sunny, right?"
"But you never know how it will be," before taking Bob's umbrella and leaving. Meanwhile, Bob's relationship with Nadia strengthens thanks to Rocco. At a cafe, Nadia reveals that Bob is the first person to not question her neck marks. Bob responds that it's her private matter and he won't judge. Nadia admits her dark past, cutting her neck with a potato peeler while high, desperate to end her life. She survived and gradually rebuilt a normal, meaningful life. At the bar, Marv voices concern to Bob about the suspicious stranger with the address, fearing for his safety. He still harbors resentment over losing his bar to Chovka Umarov a decade ago, or as he insists, 8.5 years. Deep down, Marv despises himself, and his life reflects that bitterness. Bob, meanwhile, discovers something disturbing in a trash bag, a severed hand alongside blood-covered money. The stolen cash, a broken robber's watch, and the chopped hand were all returned. Both Bob and Marv are left puzzled, wondering who returned the items and why. Bob takes the severed hand inside the bar and expertly wraps it, impressing Marv, who wonders if Bob has done this many times before. During the job, Eric suddenly barges in. The door had been left open. Marv tries to send him away, insisting they're closed. Bob nearly gets caught, but Eric merely greets him and leaves, despite clearly trying to uncover what's happening. Marv is confused about Bob and Eric's connection. When Bob explains that he claims ownership of Rocco, Marv grows more concerned. Eric, it turns out, is a local thug rumored to have killed Richie Whelan, the same man honored in the movie's opening toast. Marv warns Bob that Eric has spent months in a mental institution in jail, advising him not to cross paths with him. Bob is taken aback, but remains unfazed. Bob places the severed hand in a duffel bag and heads outside. After he leaves, Marv breaks down in tears, meticulously removing blood from the money before returning it to the Chechens. While playing with Rocco, Bob disposes of the wrapped-up hand by tossing it into the river. Detective Torres approaches, inquiring whether Bob knows Eric Deeds, which Bob denies. Later, the Chechens arrive at the bar to retrieve the stolen money. Chavka informs them that his bar will serve as the drop bar on Super Bowl night. Eric confronts Bob, pressing him about Nadia, specifically whether she has harmed herself recently. Bob immediately goes to Nadia to ask how she knows Eric. Startled, Nadia storms off, leaving Bob confused and concerned. Back with Marv, Fitz asks to get into the car, but is visibly shaken, still traumatized by losing his brother. He double-checks that the trunk isn't lined with plastic and displays his pistol. Marv opens the trunk, it's safe, and Fitz climbs in. They drive off. Marv offers Fitz a chance to participate in the Super Bowl night robbery, where a massive sum will be in the bar, but Fitz refuses, only wanting to survive. The trunk opens again, and Marv orders him out. Fitz complies nervously, and Marv runs him over repeatedly, killing him instantly. Marv then changes cars and drives away. In the next scene, Bob and Nadia meet, and Nadia apologizes for her earlier behavior. She confesses that she and Eric once dated. He was charming at first, but soon she realized how cruel he was, and they broke up. Nadia also reveals that Deeds is the one who killed Richie Whelan, though Bob already knows this. Later, Marv meets Eric in a diner, telling him that Bob fears him. Eric claims he wants Bob's respect and threatens trouble if he doesn't get it. Marv calms him, insisting he has a plan that benefits everyone. In reality, Marv intends to replace Eric with Fitz for the Super Bowl robbery, distracting Eric enough to force him to release Bob. Detective Torres meets his colleague from earlier and is handed Eric's psychological file, noticing something that immediately catches his attention. At home, Bob calls for Rocco, but the dog doesn't respond. He finds Rocco safely in his crate, along with his umbrella, suggesting Eric had been there. Bob confronts Eric, demanding he back off, making it clear he will not hand over Rocco. Eric demands $10,000 to release the dog, but Bob refuses, unable to meet the high price. Marv tells Bob he won't be at the bar during the Super Bowl, raising Bob's skepticism about their plan. He senses they're attempting something risky that may spiral out of control. Marv, haunted by his former glory days when he commanded respect before losing the bar to Chovka, yells at Bob. He's convinced that Bob's kindness to the old lady, giving her his former bar stool, is meant to humiliate him. Bob calmly assures him that it's just a stool and carries no hidden meaning. At the bar, Bob secures $10,000 in the basement, along with Rocco and a pistol. Meanwhile, Eric breaks into Nadia's home, coercing her to accompany him to Marv's bar. Though hesitant at first, Nadia decides it's safer to comply. To Bob's dismay, they arrive at the bar that evening, leaving Nadia embarrassed. Marv calls Eric only to discover he's already there amid the chaos. He warns Eric not to underestimate the gentle, soft-spoken Bob. Marv lines the trunk with plastic and drives to the bar, parking 2 blocks away to monitor the operation discreetly. Throughout the night, different mob groups drop off cash at the bar. Eventually, the bar empties, leaving only Eric and Nadia. Eric shows Nadia his gun before stepping outside for a smoke. Worried, Nadia warns Bob that Deeds intends to shoot him. When Eric returns, Bob offers him the money for the dog. Deeds asks how much Nadia is worth to him, insisting he'd prefer the money in the safe. Bob refuses and begins recounting the story of Richie Whelan, whom he claims to have killed. He explains that Marv, a loan shark, had a severe gambling problem. Richie owed him money but won a large sum at the casino and paid Marv back. It wasn't enough to cover the debt, so Bob tracked Richie down and shot him twice in the face, ensuring no one would know he had repaid Marv. Bob questions Eric, asking how he could claim credit for the murder if Bob was the one who did it. Without hesitation, Bob shoots Eric twice in the face. He reassures Nadia that she is now safe for life and free to leave. She is stunned that he trusts her not to reveal the murder. The Chechens arrive and dispose of Eric's body. Chavka, who had respected Bob from the start, offers him control of the bar and renames it Bob's Bar. Bob protests, insisting he's just a bartender. Chavka remains firm, declaring that Bob is now the new Marv. Outside, Marv notices the suspicious man from earlier approaching his car. Before he can react, he is shot in the head within seconds. Detective Torres arrives to investigate, but with Marv dead and Eric missing, Bob remains unfazed. This is the neighborhood he knows. Torres informs Bob that the church property has been purchased for residential development and asks if Bob will attend the closing, to which he agrees. It also emerges that Eric couldn't have killed Richie Whelan, as he was in a mental clinic at the time. Leaning close, Torres whispers,
"No one ever sees you coming."
Though lacking concrete evidence, the detective suspects Bob is responsible for both Whelan's and Deed's deaths. Above all, he doesn't want to tangle with Papa Umarov's mob. In the final scene, Bob delivers Rocco to Nadia's home. He apologizes for the chaotic night at the bar and feels embarrassed by his past actions. He explains that killing someone like Eric was unavoidable, as people like him would never stop blackmailing others. Bob asks Nadia if they can spend some time together. Though a mix of fear and affection fills her, Nadia agrees, saying, "Let me get my jacket." And that is how it ended. Make sure to like and subscribe for more recaps like this. It really helps the channel out. Drop a comment with your thoughts on this movie. I'll see you next time.